Hello and welcome back to Tapes of the Dead, and welcome back to the Spider's Web, where today, on day 2, we're going to be talking about Dark Ride. Dark Ride is a film from 2006, and it's one of the 8 films to die for. This is one of the only films to die for that I really remember watching all the way through. I remember seeing the doll scene from Reincarnation, which was beyond creepy, and I'm going to talk about that in another movie in a different project in the future. But first, before we even get into the review, I just want to mention this DVD screen. I haven't watched this movie in so long, and this is my original copy I own from Blockbuster from years and years ago, and I don't remember the DVD screen being this amazing. So the film opens up with these 2 twin sisters walking on a pier up to the Devil's Ride, the Dark Ride, that the one sister is scared of, and the other one keeps budging her to go on, calling her a pussy, essentially. So they inevitably get on the ride, and halfway through the ride stops in its tracks, and from nowhere, the sister gets snatched straight up, right into the ceiling. And the scared sister, who didn't even want to be there in the first place, has no idea what's going on. And then the ride continues to go, and then it stops again, and to her left, she sees on a table her sister dismembered, her guts laid out everywhere. And then we see the man in the baby doll mask grab her and kill her, and then we go to the title cards. Great opening for a great movie. So right after this great opening, we get some pretty lame mid-2000s college sex comedy bullshit. And then, out of nowhere, it's the guy from fucking Sandlot. That's the last thing I was ever expecting when I first saw this movie. I was like, what the hell is this dude doing here? I swear, this is the only other film I've seen him in. Sandlot and Dark Ride. Right after this, we get the 3 guys and the 2 girls, who I don't even remember the characters fully, honestly. All I remember is they're pretty cliche. We have the stoner character, we have the film nerd, we have a slut, and then we have the guy and the girl that are, on and off, troubled relationship. They get into the van and they start heading off, and then halfway through, they find a flyer when they make a stop at a gas station for a Dark Ride. And then the ginger kid from Sandlot starts telling them this tragic story that we saw in the opening about the twin girls and the murder and all of that. And they change their mind. Oh, hey, yeah, that's down the street. It's opening up again. Why don't we go break in and stay the night there instead of spending a night at the hotel? On their way there, they meet a random hitchhiker, and of course they pick her up. And she fills the role of crazy stoner slut girl. Some great characters in this movie. Eventually we get to see the doll-faced killer in an insane asylum where these 2 guards, one skinny guy and this real fat Hawaiian looking guy, and they go into his room and the skinny guy keeps banging on his head trying to get him to eat some meat because he's not supposed to eat meat, it's on his sheet. And the one fat dude's like, why don't we just leave him alone? And eventually the baby-faced killer breaks free of his chains, grabs the flashlight and shoves it straight through the skinny guy's stomach, and then we see a shot of the door and blood just splurt on it. So great beginning to the carnage. That's one thing I kind of remember about this movie. There's not too many scenes of good kills, but when they're good, they're pretty damn good in this film. So eventually our cast of characters find their way into the Dark Ride. They start, stalking around. The stoner guy turns on the lights for everyone, and there's just great scenes of like paper mache, animatronics, and all of these crazy things going up and down, and strobe lights. And just the set that the people built for this film looks amazing. Like, just spot on, just captures the atmosphere of a legit Dark Ride. And then from there, it's just your standard slasher horror movie. They get picked off one by one. Some of the memorable kills being that the stoner guy and the hitchhiker, they eventually find themselves alone in a room, and the hitchhiker girl goes down to start blowing the guy, and then out of nowhere, the baby-faced killer sneaks in and just cuts her head off. And the guy has no idea what's going on, and you see a shot from his ass, behind his ass, and you see her head, and you see her body just plop, and it just starts bleeding. Just great. And the last great kill scene being when the baby-faced killer sneaks up behind the security guard, who's literally on screen for only 30 seconds. He literally just makes his way into the Dark Ride, and he comes up from behind with his giant machete-like thing and just swings it straight down on the guy's head. And you just see it's from the front, and his eyes roll up, and then the head just splits open, and you can see both sides, and it just stays, the shot just stays on his head. and you see the mucus and all the blood and the brain and all the detail, and it's just fucking phenomenal. So, spoiler alert if you don't want to find out the very end of the movie, but we find out that Jim, the ginger kid from The Sandlot, is actually a brother or cousin of the baby-faced killer guy, which I don't understand at all why that's in this movie. It doesn't add to this movie. I honestly just think it makes it dumber. It would have been nice if it was just a simple slasher, but they're trying to throw this little thing at the end. Like he led them to the dark ride, so they had more of a reason or an alternative motive to get to the dark ride. But it would have been just fine. It's just a dumb, simple horror slasher, you know? But with all that said, I would definitely recommend this movie. I'm pretty sure you can get a copy of this on eBay for like $5 or $6, and it might be on Amazon Prime. Don't quote me on that, but I think it might be. And I think there's actually some other films that are worth checking out on the 8 Films to Die For. I kind of wanted to check out some other ones in the future, so who knows? You might be hearing more about the films from the same set. So join me tomorrow where I talk about Inhabited, a film I believe everyone except for me has completely forgotten about. See you then.